Hello, hello, I'm Blackjack, and this is going to be the start of a series focusing on character design and what I think makes a character look interesting visually. Some characters have a bit of a story behind their design, some characters have a difference between their concept art and how they actually look, that sort of thing. Today, I'm going to be talking about Cody Travers, the hero of Metro City in Final Fight, and someone who's gone through a couple of strange redesigns in the years since his inception. He's gone through three sort of eras of costumes that tell you a pretty strange story, especially in the context of his games, which themselves have their own strange story. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. If we go ahead and start at the beginning of Final Fight, back in 1989, and we look at Cody's bio, it tells us kind of the basics of who he is and what exactly he's doing. Pretty standard setup for a beating up style fighting game. He's a fight man ready to take on the Mad Gear gang to save the daughter of Metro City Mayor Mike Hagar, and that woman also happens to be his girlfriend. Another thing in Cody's bio is that he's good with knives. This refers to the gameplay of Final Fight in which you can actually pick up weapons, which was pretty new at the time. Cody picks up knives, and of course Hagar favors the ever-famous pipe. Jumping into Cody's actual design, he's got a white t-shirt and jeans, with his only real standout being the wraps on his hands, which signal that he's a fighter, I guess. Simple, clean design straight out of any of number of action movies of the 80s, where big guys with big muscles fight big bad guys. In fact, part of the reason for this might actually be that Final Fight and its story take a bit from an actual action movie of the 80s. While I haven't watched Street Fighter or Streets of Fire, the basic plot is that a gang kidnaps a woman named Ellen and a guy named Tom Cody gets wrapped up in the fight to get her back. Now, Final Fight Cody's regular sprite doesn't look a ton like Tom, but his larger portrait definitely bears a slight resemblance, albeit with pixel art. What furthers the connection, though, is, well, see for yourself.
Try it again, punk.
In addition to looking a bit like him, Cody is also actually good with knives. But if you're still not convinced, here's a couple of other characters that take some clear inspiration. You got a woman in a red dress, Ed, the cop, and Eddie E., the corrupt cop of the Mad Gear gang, and Willem Dafoe sharing outfit tips with a random enemy. Going back to the actual story of Final Fight, what happens next? Cody fights off the Mad Gear gang, and he never really stops. Final Fight Revenge picks up off the back of the original Final Fight after a couple of games with no Cody. Once again, the Mad Gears come back, and again, Cody teams up with Hagar, but this time, once he actually saves Jessica, he doesn't really stop. It's a bit unclear what happens specifically, but eventually, Cody beats up enough people and takes the law into his own hands so much that he actually ends up getting arrested. Him and Jessica break up, and that's where the story leaves off, for quite a while. And this kind of goes back to the thing I was talking about before with Final Fight and having kind of an interesting story, and that is, this is the point where it merges with Street Fighter. Cody's next big appearance is Street Fighter Alpha 3, in which he comes back with a very new and very interesting design compared to his last one. Hero of Metro City has been arrested, though he found his way out of prison and seeks to cure his boredom by fighting everyone he finds. Aside from a more cartoonish art style to fit in with the other Street Fighters, he looks pretty much the same, barring his new outfit. And if you showed a random person that didn't know anything about Street Fighter the difference between Cody's Final Fight look and this one, it'd be pretty easy to tell that something went down. Specifics are a bit strange, but yeah, you go from a hero to a guy getting arrested. Honestly, a really interesting direction that they went with. While nowadays an orange jumpsuit would be a bit more appropriate for a prisoner, there's no denying that one look at Cody in Alpha 3 tells you that he's a jailbird. However, Capcom decided to do something really interesting with him, and that was that everything that Cody did in the original Final Fight happened. Cody actually fought through an entire gang's worth of people in like a day. Because of this, they acknowledge that he's actually super powerful, and that's even said around in his design. In addition to his original wraps, he's now sporting a pair of actual handcuffs. And while that could just be seen as him being a prisoner who hasn't managed to get them off, a couple of taunts show that he's actually totally capable of taking them off whenever he feels like it. yeah, Cody is so strong that he willingly handicaps himself in order to feel some sort of challenge, and that's shown on his design just by having him there and being able to take him off. And one of the things I love most about Cody is that in a world where people can punch fire and shoot Hadokens, he counters by throwing rocks really hard. His superpower is just, he's powerful. He doesn't have any fancy martial arts or anything like that. He's just really, really, really strong. Moving on to Street Fighter 4, Cody shows back up, still sporting his prisoner gear and still working those handcuffs. His story shows him casually busting out of jail by destroying the wall, off on the way to go fight some more, before he actually just walks back into jail because he doesn't really have anything better to do. I'll skip past this bit, seeing his outfit really hasn't changed, barring the transition to 3D, but the advantage over models, over 2D pixel art, is that Cody actually gets to switch up his style a bit. Taking a look at Cody's other outfits, we see him make a transition to a proper prison jumpsuit, one of a more modern style. Not a lot to say on that, other than, yeah, it makes sense to give him a modern jumpsuit rather than the old-time stripes. His other default, however, is quite a bit more interesting. It sees him sort of return to his roots, though with some updates to add some extra pomp and circumstance. He still has his 80s jeans, but they've been given some rips to show off his actual street fighting. He's got a belt, and he's upgraded his plain white t-shirt for a tank top with some trim to throw in a bit of extra color. He still has his cuffs from the newer games, but he swapped out his hand wraps for a single biker glove, a wristband, and a necklace, plus some tattoos. In essence, I think it's a great recapturing of the simplicity of his original outfit, but with some modern flair that takes advantage of having a 3D model and the space to actually add detail. That's one of the advantages of having 3D models, is that you can just add detail wherever you want, which you can't really do with pixel art. There's just so much more space and texture work that you're able to put into it. And that was the last we saw Cody proper for a good 10 years or so. Well into the DLC cycle of Street Fighter V, he came out as a full character. Before that, however, we actually got an early glimpse of what he'll look like in the form of the Shadaloo Combat Research Institute, a fake database detailing Street Fighter characters from the perspective of foot soldiers of Shadaloo, the evil organization that kind of works in the background. It chronicled a good number of characters that hadn't been seen prior, and also gave us a new look for Cody before he came out with the arcade edition. The Combat Institute kind of was just showing what characters are doing in between games, just giving us an extra look at them. And here we see that at some point, his old school prison outfit was swapped for the newer one seen in his alternate outfit from 4. However, instead of actually wearing it, he's tied the jacket around his waist, revealing a tank top like in his redesign. I thought I'd include this to show off another pretty well thought out design, and because it shows that Cody's Street Fighter V design may have come pretty late into development. In fact, some concept art shows that there are still plans to keep him as a prisoner, with an outfit showing him having stolen Eddie E's uniform, different style jumpsuit, him as a homeless guy, and whatever this is. That sure would have been an interesting direction to go with, but we won't be seeing it now. And here we start to see his concept go where his final design actually ended up. Kind of a bit boring as a suit design, but a neat little detail is that his tie looks like it has the original prison stripes from his Street Fighter 3 outfit. And, with his original concept art out of the way, let's go ahead and turn the beat back to the beginning. Mr. Cody Travers, the mayor of Metro City. Yeah, kind of a little fun nickname that people came up with when he was first shown off, but yeah, totally fitting. This is not really a completely different character, but yeah, it's a completely different look for him and tells a lot about it, where his story actually went. Again, if you were to show his original design followed by his alpha design, that would tell you a story. If you put all three of them together, you get an even stranger story. You see Cody start out as a young man, fighting his way through a gang, getting arrested when he goes too far, and finally stepping up and taking a more legit way to clean up the streets of his hometown. Taking up the mantle of his friend Mike Hagar, Cody becomes the mayor, turning his handcuffs for a fresh pressed suit. And speaking of taking up the mantle, Cody's battle costume isn't just a send-up to Hagar, it seems to quite literally be the former mayor's pants and belt, and he was a much, much larger guy. And in addition, alongside his trusty knife, he saw fit to bring Hagar's famous pipe into the fray, showing that our new mayor still prefers to beat crime off the streets rather than sit behind a desk. Another thing to note is that you can see Cody's boxers, and you can also see that they have a picture of a cow on them. It's easy enough to miss to begin with, because he's usually moving, but that's actually a reference to Holstein, a send-up to Capcom's arcade days where it would appear as a bonus item, and it only fits for the character that's well known from his original arcade game. Looking at Cody's last new outfit, there's not really a lot of information to glean from it. It's a nice tux, and that shows that Cody is now one of the more higher-ups expected to attend fancy gatherings and stuff like that. Aside from that, not really a whole lot more to say, and it doesn't really seem to have any sort of place anywhere. And his old outfits come back as well, and you could toggle them to switch them up a bit, which is pretty cool. His jumpsuit, you can actually tie his jacket around his waist, like in his Shadow Lord. It's a pretty neat detail that not a lot of people would notice. And with all that, wait. Where was I going with this again?
What the hell happened to your focus? Quit toying with this guy!
This is my bro, Cody. A local hero. We don't fight anymore. Back in the day, he was the man. He's kind of a hard-ass, but he's always been there for me.
Oh, right. Streetwise was the thing. While it may not have been the best game in the franchise, I will give the developers of Final Fight Streetwise credit where credit is due. This version of Cody took a slightly different path where all that fighting caught up with him, and eventually his body couldn't keep up anymore. As such, he's got a 5 o'clock shadow and a more ragged look in general. I think it's actually a pretty good design, and it especially fits in with the more grunge style of Streetwise. It also includes yet another prison jacket, but it seems to be worn over his original clothes. You can see his t-shirt and jeans from the first game, as well as his wraps. And as long as we're talking about Streetwise, I would be remiss not to mention...
My own suffering has led to inspiration, and that inspiration to death!
Cody! You sick bastard!
So remember when the final boss of Final Fight Streetwise was Cody high up on a drug called Glow that mutated him into a zombie? No? No one played Streetwise? Oh, okay, that's fair. Cody Death, based on Death of the Four Horsemen, exists in a pretty weird spot in the series overall, especially considering it's a monster. Like, I could understand a drugged and brainwashed Cody, but even ignoring the bright glowing death on his chest, he has spikes coming out of his skin. To clarify, Cody is on a drug called Glow, which makes for a nice visual on his arms and face, but yeah, Street Fighter isn't exactly a normal world, but this is still a pretty weird route to go. Ah well. And with that, that's actually everything I have to say about Cody. Really, I mentioned it earlier, but I wanted to talk about him because his designs tell a pretty cohesive story about where he came from, where he went, and where he is now. And there we go. Thanks for making it all the way through. This is my first attempt at making and editing a video, so I hope you find it interesting. I made this because the idea of talking about character design has been aching in the back of my head, and I'm super glad I was finally able to put it together. Let me know what kind of improvements I can make in the future, and let me know if there's a character or series you'd like me to discuss. And if you really want, throw some money on my Patreon. I am just starting out, but I'd like to grow this channel into something I can be happy with. And I'd be very happy if you leave a like or comment or share it around. And if you enjoyed it, let me know. If not, tell me what I can work on with the future. Blackjack out.